Hi, I'm Bailey. For the past 2 years, I've been the invisible force keeping the Harrington mansion spotless while being treated like I'm less than the dirt I clean up. Bailey, the fingerprints on the French doors are inexcusable. Do them again before the guests arrive. Vivian Harrington barely looked up from her phone as I was already on my third hour of preparing for their garden party. Yes, Mrs. Harrington. I kept my voice neutral despite the fact I'd cleaned those doors twice already. The Harringtons weren't just rich, they were stupid rich. Richard Harrington ran some tech company that made millions, and his wife Vivian spent her days planning parties and criticizing my work. Their 8-year-old son Ethan was actually decent, probably because he hadn't fully absorbed his parents' toxic entitlement yet. The caterers need direction in the kitchen, Vivian. Can't you handle anything without bothering me? Richard stormed through the foyer, nearly knocking over the vase I'd just arranged. That's what we have staff for, darling. Bailey, after the doors, go help the caterers. I was already juggling 5 tasks, but I just nodded. Arguing meant unemployment. Bailey, be a dear and make sure my room is spotless. I left some things out of place. Diana, Richard's sister, gave me that smile that never reached her eyes. Everyone knew she was angling to get more involved in Richard's business, and his money. By afternoon, the garden was filled with 50 of Boston's elite, all drinking champagne and pretending to care about each other. I circulated with appetizer trays, completely invisible except when someone needed something. The help seems particularly slow today, commented James, Richard's business associate, loud enough for me to hear as I passed. I spotted Ethan playing near the pool despite the no swimming rule Vivian had established for the party. No adult was watching him. They were all too busy with their networking and gossip. The splash was small, but I noticed it immediately. Ethan had slipped and fallen into the deep end. I scanned the crowd. Not one person had seen it happen. The boy was struggling, his head barely breaking the surface. "Help! Someone help!" I shouted. But the party chatter and music drowned me out. Without thinking, I kicked off my shoes and jumped in, my uniform instantly soaking heavy. Swimming had never been my strong suit, but adrenaline pushed me forward. I reached Ethan and managed to pull him toward the edge. "I got you, it's okay," I gasped, fighting to keep both of us above water. When I finally pushed him onto the pool deck, my muscles were screaming. Ethan coughed up water as I tried to pull myself out, but my waterlogged uniform made it nearly impossible. "Ethan! What happened?" Vivian finally noticed, rushing over in her designer heels. My vision started going spotty as I clung to the edge. The last thing I remember was Diana's shocked face peering down at me and James standing behind her, his expression unreadable. Then darkness took over as I slipped back into the water, my body finally giving out from exhaustion. I woke up coughing, sprawled on the wet concrete beside the pool. Someone had pulled me out, but it definitely wasn't Vivian, who was now standing over me with fury in her eyes. "What were you thinking? You could have killed my son!" She was screeching loud enough for all the party guests to hear. I blinked, trying to process her words. But he was drowning. He was playing a game. Ethan is on the swim team, for God's sake. Vivian turned to the gathering crowd. Our maid pushed my son into the pool and then jumped in after him. Some twisted hero fantasy, I suppose? I struggled to sit up, my soaked uniform clinging to me. "That's not what happened." "I saw everything," Ethan piped up, his small voice trembling. "Bailey saved—" "Hush, Ethan," Richard cut him off, appearing beside his wife. "Go inside with Aunt Diana right now." Diana swept in, guiding Ethan away while giving me a look that clearly said, "Don't make this worse." "Everyone, please enjoy the party," Richard announced smoothly. "Minor incident, all handled now." As the guests reluctantly dispersed, Richard gripped my arm and pulled me to my feet. "My office, now." 20 minutes later, still dripping on his expensive carpet, I stood facing both Harringtons. "This is grounds for immediate termination," Richard was saying, pacing behind his desk. "Not to mention potential legal action for endangering our child. But I saved him. He fell in and no one was watching." "Convenient story," Vivian sneered. "We'll be filing an insurance claim for trauma." Ethan will need therapy after this incident. My jaw dropped. You're blaming me? There were witnesses. Like who? James? Richard laughed coldly. Go ahead. Ask him what he saw. On cue, James entered the office, straightening his tie. You wanted to see me, Richard? Did you witness any inappropriate behavior from our maid at the pool? James glanced at me, then back at Richard. I was discussing the merger with Senator Phillips. I'm afraid I didn't see anything until the commotion. Coward. He'd been standing right there when I pulled Ethan out. See? Vivian smirked. Now clean yourself up and finish your duties. We'll discuss your final paycheck tomorrow. After they left, I sat stunned for 5 full minutes. Then something inside me hardened. If they wanted to play dirty, I could too. I grabbed my phone from my locker and started recording a video. Today is June 14th. I just saved Ethan Harrington from drowning while his parents were ignoring him. Now they're threatening to fire me and claim I endangered him. Over the next week, I documented everything. Every insult, every unreasonable demand, every conversation I overheard. Ethan tried approaching me several times. I told Mommy you saved me, Bailey. I know, buddy. Thank you for trying. She said I was confused and to stop talking about it. It's okay, Ethan. I know what happened. While cleaning Richard's office Friday evening, I noticed he'd left his computer unlocked. A rare mistake. On the screen was an email draft to their lawyer, detailing plans to sue me for negligence and emotional distress caused to Ethan. But that wasn't all. As I glanced through his open files, another document caught my eye. Westlake Properties, Insurance Fraud Documentation. I grabbed my phone and started taking pictures. This wasn't just about me anymore. My hands shook as I snapped more pictures of the Westlake documents. This was bigger than I thought. Richard had been filing false insurance claims on properties his company developed. I quickly put everything back exactly as I found it and slipped out. The next morning, I approached Rosa, the cook who'd been with the Harringtons for 5 years. Can I ask you something? Has Richard ever done anything shady that you've noticed? Rosa looked around nervously before whispering, You didn't hear it from me, but check the cabinet in the staff room, behind the cleaning supplies. Inside, I found a notebook filled with dates and incidents written by former staff members. Times Richard had refused to pay wages, sexual harassment claims against him that were silenced with money, Vivian's verbal abuse documented in detail. We've all been adding to it, Rosa explained when I confronted her. But nobody's brave enough to do anything. I am, I told her. But I need help. Within days, I had 4 tiny recording devices, courtesy of Miguel, the gardener whose cousin worked in electronics. I planted them strategically: living room, Richard's office, dining room, and the kitchen. While dusting the living room, I overheard Richard on the phone. Look, the Westlake inspections were a formality. Just backdate the paperwork like last time. My recordings were adding up, but I needed more. Then Ethan gave me the perfect opportunity. Bailey, can you help me with my science project? It's about recording sounds. I smiled at him. That sounds perfect. Where should we set it up? In the dining room. We can record dinner tonight. That evening, Ethan's science project, actually my 5th recording device, captured Richard discussing bribing a city official. The zoning board needs another 20 grand. Small price for the variances we need. Can't you just threaten them like last time? Vivian asked, sipping her wine. Too risky with the new district attorney. On Wednesday, Diana cornered me in the hallway. I know what you're doing, she whispered. My heart stopped. I don't know what... Don't play dumb. The recordings. I've seen you. I braced myself for threats, but Diana surprised me. Richard ruined my husband's business 10 years ago. He's not just your enemy. She slipped me a USB drive. Bank statements. He's been embezzling from my trust fund. Why help me now? Because you saved Ethan, and I'm tired of being complicit. The mistreatment got worse daily. Vivian started forgetting to pay me, claiming mistakes in my hours. You're lucky we don't charge you rent for sleeping in the staff quarters, she sneered when I requested my overdue wages. Perhaps you'd prefer we discuss this with our lawyer? Richard added, smirking. Little did they know, every threat was now on record. The annual charity gala was their biggest event of the year, Harrington's for Humanity, where Richard showcased his fake philanthropy to every important person in the city. This year's event was especially important with Mayor Williams and several investors attending. The night before the gala, I compiled everything: recordings, photographs, the staff notebook, Diana's financial documents, and testimonials from 3 former employees Rosa had connected me with. As I organized the evidence, Ethan appeared in the doorway of my quarters. Are you going to get my parents in trouble? I hesitated. They haven't been very nice to me, Ethan. He nodded solemnly. I know. They're not nice to anybody. Not even me, really. I'm just making sure the truth comes out. Good, he said simply. I told James you saved me. He said he remembers too. I smiled. Did he now? That's very interesting. With Ethan's innocent revelation, the final piece fell into place. Tomorrow, the Harringtons would face the music, and I had a feeling James might finally find his backbone. The Harringtons for Humanity Gala was in full swing as I moved among Boston's elite with trays of champagne. Richard stood on stage, beaming with false philanthropy. This year, we've raised over $2 million for children's education. I nodded to Miguel's cousin in the control booth. The lights dimmed, and instead of the planned charity video, my recordings began to play, showing the pool incident, then Richard and Vivian threatening me afterward. Turn that off immediately! Richard lunged toward the tech booth. The video continued, now showing him discussing insurance fraud and bribing officials. This is slander! Vivian shrieked. Security! Arrest that maid! I stepped forward. Everything you're seeing is real. The Harringtons have been lying to all of you. Ethan broke away from his mother and ran to my side. Bailey saved me when I fell in the pool. Nobody else even saw me drowning. Mom and Dad made me lie about it. He's confused, obviously traumatized. Vivian grabbed his arm. He's telling the truth. James stepped forward. I witnessed the entire incident. Bailey risked her life to save him. I'm ashamed I didn't speak up sooner. Mayor Williams moved forward, his expression grim. These are serious accusations, Richard. Especially that bit about the zoning board. It's all taken out of context, Richard sputtered. Is this taken out of context too, brother? Diana held up a USB drive. Your creative accounting with my trust fund, or the documented harassment of 12 former employees? Guests began heading for the exits. Richard grabbed my arm. You ungrateful little... I wouldn't, came a stern voice. It was Catherine Reynolds, CEO of a rival company. Miss Bailey, I'd like to offer you a position in my organization. Anyone with your resourcefulness would be an asset. Bailey, please, Vivian pleaded as police officers entered. We can work this out. Name your price. I'm sorry about everything, Richard added, his face ashen. I looked at them both. There's no price for dignity, or for the truth. I turned to Catherine. I'd love to hear more about that position. 3 months later, I watched the news from my new apartment. Former CEO Richard Harrington faces multiple charges including fraud, embezzlement, and bribery. His wife, Vivian Harrington, has filed for divorce amidst the scandal. In related news, Ethan Harrington is now living with his Aunt Diana, who has been granted temporary custody. I turned off the TV and smiled. Sometimes justice doesn't need to be complicated. Sometimes it just needs someone willing to stand up and tell the truth. The story has ended. What would you have done if you were Bailey? Would you have exposed the Harringtons publicly at their own charity event? Or would you have chosen a more private form of justice? And do you think she was right to reject their apologies completely? If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more revenge tales of justice served. Your comments mean everything. Share your thoughts below about what you would have done in Bailey's shoes.